Hello there, welcome to Evolve with Natu. My name is Natu. If you're new here, great to have you. And if you're a returning viewer or subscriber, welcome back. We love having you here. Today I'm sharing one of my favorite recipes, Jamaican Oxtail, with my own twist, of course. So to my Jamaican brothers and sisters, please do not come for me. So first things first, let's wash this oxtail. I've got about 3 pounds of it here. So we're doing the classic way, lemon, water, and salt. We do not play about hygiene in this kitchen. Clean meat equals clean eats. So I normally use Himalayan sea salt, but any salt is fine. Any salt is fine, really. Same for lemons. If you don't have lemons, use limes. So now off to vegetables. I'm chopping my green onions. I'm chopping my white onions, red onions, garlic, my bell peppers. And please don't come for me with the way I hold my knife. I know it's unorthodox, but guess what? I still have my fingers intact. And here I'm chopping my tomatoes. What's missing on this clip is me chopping my carrots. I had already chopped them. Off to the dry spices, we have our garlic, we have our allspice pimento seeds grounded, we have our oxtail seasoning, we have our onion powder, we have our all-purpose seasoning, we have our salt, Himalayan sea salt, and what's missing is thyme, but you can see it in this picture. Now to our wet ingredients, we have our green seasoning, we have our oxtail marinade, we have our Worcestershire sauce. I'm so proud that I say this right. And we also have our olive oil. Do not stress about the measurements. I am going to be sharing them in the description box. Here's just a display of all the seasonings before I start pouring them. And I'll be honest with you, if it's not for this video, I usually just eyeball the seasoning. But for the sake of this video, I had to measure. So I usually start with my dry seasonings. And I in no particular order. I usually start with like onions, garlic powder. I usually don't follow in any order. But yeah, I don't think there's any magic behind which seasoning goes first. As long as you get all of them in there. So bits by bits, I add each one of them. Until I feel like it's enough, and then I start slowly massaging to ensure that each of the seasoning is getting on each of the pieces of oxtail meat. And then once I'm done, I move to the wet ingredients, my green seasoning, and with this too, I do not have a formula behind what goes first. Green seasoning and then the oxtail marinade. What I usually finish off with the wet ingredients, though, is the oil. And I usually add it after all the wet ingredients or after I've added the vegetables. But the vegetables usually come after I'm done adding the wet ingredients. So, yeah, just as I say, I normally don't measure. But for the sake of this video, I had to be measuring so that I'm giving you guys exact measurements for each of these ingredients. So once I'm done with wet ingredients, I move to the vegetables now, adding them. And with this one, there isn't any method to this madness. I just add with it whichever vegetables are in front of me. And once everything is added, I start massaging each of the ingredients. I usually spend a good 7 to 10 minutes on this. And this is my seasoned meat going into the fridge. This is after staying overnight. Now we're off to cooking. I usually heat up my olive oil in a pot and I toss in some sugar. So normally I usually brown sugar, but today I didn't have brown sugar, so I have to use white sugar. I make sure that the sugar is caramelizing. When it caramelizes, it gives our meat a brown, rich color. And that's the secret. Don't say I never told you. And then once the sugar has been heated up, the oil is hot, I add each of the oxtails before I start browning them, each one of them. So bits by bits. And I didn't realize it's a lot of them. But here's me trying to add them without adding the vegetables. So we usually save the vegetables to the last step of cooking. So yeah, enjoy the process. Now that each piece of the oxtail meat has been added, now I'm starting to brown the oxtail. Turning it bits by bits, ensuring that each of the oxtail is getting browned. So yeah, this process usually takes a few minutes, depending on how much oxtail you have. I could have probably used a bigger pot, but yeah, this is the pot that I had for that day. I probably need to invest in a bigger pot if I'm cooking this much oxtail. So now the oxtail has browned. Now we're going to add our boiling hot water and let it simmer and cook slow and low for a little over 3 hours. And I'll keep topping the hot water off that is, as it's needed. Meanwhile, we have a rice and peas situation. I had soaked my red kidney beans for 6 hours. That's a commitment, okay? Now, once we had the beans almost cooked, and I'm cooking them with garlic and green onions. Now they're almost cooked. I had added my coconut milk, and then I also added my seasoning, black pepper, all-purpose seasoning, and rice and peas seasoning, or just any Caribbean seasoning. And this step I would have also added my salt, which is missing in this clip. After a little boil for a few minutes, I add my chicken broth just to give it a little bit of kick there, a bit of a flavor. And once my chicken broth is added, I let it boil for a few minutes before I add my washed jasmine rice. This is Thai jasmine rice. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but I think any rice will do. And once the rice is added, which I make sure I scoop every piece of the rice. In Swahili, we call it punjadam chile. I don't know if it's the pari in me. But yeah, I scoop every single thing. I always imagine my mom is right behind me yelling at me for wasting food. Sorry, mom, for putting you on the spot. She's not around, but that's usually the image that I have every time I'm scooping rice, because I was known to be that kid who was just wasting food anytime it was my time to cook. So yeah, now we add the rice and then we turn the heat to low. We cover the boiling rice, and at this stage I usually just cover it until the water is almost dry, and then after that I will add my aluminium foil, turn the heat to extremely low, and just let it slow cook. Now our oxtail has been cooking for almost 3.5 hours now. It's almost cooked. Now we're adding our vegetables, which had been sitting on the side, the vegetables that were part of the seasoning. And then at this stage, I also add ketchup, just to give it a bit of a kick. And then and the ketchup is not being caught on this clip, I also add beef broth. And depending on how it tastes, I might just adjust my seasoning by adding any more seasoning. But yeah, in this particular incident, the seasoning was just enough. I didn't need to add anything. And then I let it cook for maybe another 10-15 minutes. I cook until it's falling off the bone. And what will be a meal without rice and peas and plantains? Surprise, surprise. If you know me, you know surprise that plantains are here. You're not surprised plantains are here. Now, this is our final product. We have our oxtail, we have our rice and peas, and we have our plantain, as my Jamaican people will say, but rest of us say plantain. And yeah, this is a plate that I had made for my sister, and stay tuned to hear her testimony of how the food tastes. You had asked for oxtail. How is your meal?
Excellent, amazing, fantabulous.
Well, guys, here's our oxtail, rice and peas and plantains. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot. Until next time, bye-bye. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. Share this video. Bye-bye.